Afternoon. This video documentation is in regards to the C-Class W204 chassis headlights. I understand that you might be having some HID concerns and having the bulb maybe not loading or having trouble generally with the low beam HIDs. Just wanted to take the time to make sure that most of the HID components, if not all, they're always pre-tested or bench tested prior to shipping out, because we do have a 12-volt power supply that we always use on hand to test the lights before shipping them out. So this video is just running through the overview of how the HID connections are supposed to be, to make sure that you don't have any polarity concerns, as polarity concerns can inhibit from the lights from operating correctly. Please bear with me. The HID bulb that you most likely receive has probably like a rubber grommet right here tying all 4 wires together, which I kind of use the tape to bind the wires together to kind of mimic to what setup that you might have. So in a sense, the HID bulb will have the following wires. Pretty much you'll have the HID bulb itself, you'll have a 9005 connector for the internal connector side, and also I'll free this side up as well. You'll have a male and female connector that goes strictly to the HID ballast. And lastly, you'll have a female 9005 connector, whereas the internal one is a male connector with pins. So this is in a sense the HID bulb that you have. What I'm asking you to do is carefully follow me to make sure all the connection points are correct, in that you have the correct polarity alignment. So the male and female plugs for the HID ballast is straightforward. You can't get this messed up because that's only one way to plug them. So you got these plugged securely. If in any case you had a hard time plugging in, make sure that the pins align and it goes into the pin slot. At times, if any of the pins get bent or get misaligned and not go into the pin slot, this can cause a connectivity concern. So that being done, you're left with the female 9005 connector. That connector will go to your HID ballast. I know it's your inclination to go wherever the tab is to meet with the tab. However, might I ask you that the inner side, which is the side that's facing the wire, has to remain positive. This side has to remain negative. That being said, you can use the color coding to indicate which wires that you're connecting in. Red for positive, black for negative. So plug in as is. Again, reflecting that the red inside, black outside. Following, you got the internal male 9005 connector. This is also important, as the polarity needs to match for the HID bulb to correctly load. So you have the internal female from the depot light, you have the male to meet to your female. So with this internal 9005 female 9005 connector, you'll notice that you have a grounding negative, which is the 2 black wires, and a positive, which is indicated as a yellow wire. Again, very important. I know your inclination might be to match the tabs to tabs and connect it, and you have it complete that way. However, be very careful. In this instance, you can clearly see that the red wire is aligned with the negative black wire. This is incorrect, meaning that the polarity, there's an issue already with the polarity, which will inhibit the HID bulb from even loading. To correct this issue, you can easily flip it around to make sure the black wire matches black, red to yellow wire. Even though the tabs don't match up, you can still be able to see that you can still connect these connections together with no issues. That being said, all you have left to do is pretty much power the low beam to test it, which I have a 12-volt power supply on hand that I'm using. Pretty much these wires are connected directly to the headlight's pin, because I figured out which is low beam and which is the grounding negative. To go ahead and use the internal wires to power the HID ballast, to power the HID bulb finally, which I'm going to demonstrate to you this right now. So I made sure polarity is correct. Polarity is correct on this end, so I should have no issues powering them up, as mentioned. So in a sense, please check your connections. Make sure, first of all, you don't have any contact issue. The most important thing, second of all, polarity. Make sure all your internal and also the external 9005 connector polarity matches, because it does matter for our HID components. If you have halogen bulbs in there, it shouldn't matter, but for your HID or LED setups, it does matter. So again, if you have concerns that the bulbs you receive, or even replacement HID components that you receive, might be faulty from the start, you could always use an external power source to test it. You don't need the headlights, being the case that we almost never run into issues with the headlights having wiring issues. So if you want to test it out of the car and on a separate power supply unit, pretty much you have one or two ways. You can pretty much test it from here if you have the 9005 connected to the ballast, or you can just bypass this wire in its entirety. And then pretty much you're bypassing this wire in it and just strictly testing from the ballast to the bulb, which I'm demonstrating this to you right now. So again, pulling the pins off from the headlights, ensure that the positive is on the inside, negative is on the outside. positive and negative outside. Once I get that polarity aligned correctly, I should be able to bench test the bulb with no issues, which this is pretty much what I do to test the replacement HID bulbs. You can see that it loads with no issues, as the wires are directly running from the ballast to the bulb directly. Pretty much this surmises or concludes the video documentation. Thank you so much for your time.